things like when I become a parent that I'm gonna have to wage against, I guess, some ethical things that I wouldn't want my kids to do, even though I did them. And where's that?
Did you let them do it, make your mistakes?
Yeah, where's that fine line? Do you let a child make his own mistakes, or do you try to tell them, don't do this because of this, because I did it?
That's like my parents always say, do as I say, not as I do.
So what do they mean by that though?
It's like they did all of that stuff in school, but they don't want me to do it.
Yeah, I would let my kid make my mistakes, let them learn for themselves, because if they don't, they're not gonna know like what that actual like experience is, so they won't be able to like tell their kids.
But I would want them to like be educated before they make, like I want them to make smart choices, because I want to like make sure they know that drugs are bad, like the effects and the causes of like the badness, so they wouldn't have that like urgency or want to try and
It's like common sense.
but I want to make sure they're educated and have that knowledge, because some people like they really don't have that common sense to know that drugs are bad. They just see like the benefits of it, like getting high and like feeling like you're fine.
What if your child did? They understand that drugs do have ill consequences, but there's still that idea out there that, well, I'm going to take a long break because I want to make this mistake on my own. So come on, you said that you want your kids to make their own mistakes.
Well, I mean, I meant that in general, not like, oh, go do drugs.
Oh, I think that's just the example that came.
Okay, but like, I don't know. I don't have a kid right now, so I don't.
I don't either. So,
I don't want to think of
well, considering if you take that into account, you guys are teenagers. I think that your parents right now are probably in the time span where
They're trying to brainwash you, make sure you stay home for college.
But is that okay? If we look at Siddhartha, is that okay to put your values on your child? To a certain extent.
Yeah.
What do you mean by that?
They're not going to always have the parent there to guide them and to impress upon them their thoughts, beliefs, philosophies, teachings. So at some point you gotta like let them make their own decisions, have their own thoughts, opinions. Otherwise it is gonna be like a brainwash. It's gonna be like you're trying to have them live as you would, but it's their life, so they gotta live their own life.
It kind of depends on your view of the universe too. I mean, like, if you think that, if you have this kind of view that things kind of, like, particularly like looking back on your own life, you may think, well, I'm in a good place now, so the mistakes I made were important, made me kind of who I am today. And so there's this kind of, when you look back on your life, there's this view that, well, okay, everything kind of worked out, whether it was destined that way or whether it just kind of worked out for the best. And if you think that way, that, well, things are going to work out best, things will just kind of work out for the best, then I think you're much more willing to say, okay, go and make your own choices because it's going to work out the best. But if you actually think that people can really change the course of their lives, like, can really end up better or, end up way worse, then I think that you try to get them to walk something more similar to your own path. Right?
So it's your view of people.
Or you're just like, because you know that your path was in some sense successful, or even if if your path was not successful, then you can at least you just use your own knowledge of your own path to guide your decisions. But again, I think the shift where Siddhartha comes in is that he's going to recognize that his path is just his path. Right? What may have been good for his father, what may have been good for all these different people, didn't apply to him. And so I think that if he, with Siddhartha at least, is that if his son's going to say, well, I need to get my own path, Siddhartha's going to say, well, go ahead. Because I think he has this view of the universe, well, it's going to work out anyway.
Mm-hmm.
I think he wants, because his son doesn't know him for like the first 12 years of his life. So Siddhartha feels, hey, I think he'll be super understanding and like he understands that you can't be pushed into something and you have to like grow into it and have your own taste for things. So I don't think he's gonna like be like assertive kind of parent and like hit his kid or discipline his kid in any way. He'll just be like, do what you want because you have the ability to think for your own self.
And maybe it's because he hasn't been with him for 12 years. He doesn't trust his ability to think for himself.
Yeah.
Because he might not trust it because TJ always brings up this idea of heat. In a materialistic society that he does whatever makes him happy. For the most part, he has servants and all those things. So maybe Siddhartha doesn't trust his thinking. So maybe that's why he's kind of forcing this idea of. I mean, is he even forcing it though? That's.
But what if he feels like intruders on his side, because he hasn't been there, and like he can't, like a guy friend I haven't known my whole life just came and started bossing me around, like acting like he was my dad, just because he like had sex with my mom, and like he like fertilized my mom for me, and came out with me or whatever. Like that doesn't entitle him to be my dad and give him give orders to me and stuff just because he did that.
People who raise you,
Not people like you.
that give you up. Or well, you didn't necessarily give you up.
Like he didn't know about it. It wasn't his fault or anything, but it's just the fact that he wasn't there. So he's not entitled to have that fatherly position yet. He has to grow into it.
You can't really experience the past because you're always
Yeah.
living right now.
It makes me wonder just about what is the role of father. What is the role of a community in terms of those? You really need a community in order to identify with yourself as who you are.
Yeah,
So I'm gonna keep going.
I was thinking this thing about the raising is that
I get speak.
We're talking about the river
Yeah.
and what the river symbolizes.
On what page are we on?
pretty much the whole chapter.
Yeah, the whole chapter.
The whole started from the beginning, so we infer that the river is this path, right?
So one single path, like you can't deviate from it.
Yeah.
And it's everywhere.
Yeah, that's the kind of what we get to.
It says right there that
107.
he starts a new life all the time because I guess the river keeps having new water, like it just keeps flowing, so it's never like the same water that came in, so it's always new. He's always starting off new.
So that new water is like new experiences.
Yeah, like all new experiences.
You know, when I read that part, it reminded me of our discussion yesterday about constantly changing. Like, remember we talked about the body is constantly changing, the new cells generate and whatnot. The river, to me, like, I read that, I thought the exact same thing. Oh, that must be the path. And then it also made me think of, like, could the river kind of symbolize just Siddhartha, too? In terms of constantly
Like
changing.
the river could like split off at any point, like go into two sections, and then you could take one or you could take the other. And, I don't know, like one might be all dry, and one might just keep going on forever.
But I wouldn't say that the river symbolizes Siddhartha because he's not actually, like, I don't think he's actually changing because he changes what he does, the things he's going about, but he doesn't change himself because he still does the same thing, waiting, fasting, thinking. He still does that all the time. So I just think he tries to change, but he's only changing what he's doing. He's not going to change himself.
Talking about the if you're looking for something and you won't find it, that like he's looking to change. If he's looking to change it, he probably won't find it. Has to let it happen. Oh yeah, that shadow stuff.
Oh yeah, this last part.
Wait, what page are we on?
He's Siddhartha was asking the guy, what's his name, Vasudeva, if he learned the secret of the river, that there's no such thing as time. And then he said, yeah. and he said the river is everywhere at the same time, at the source of the mouth, at the waterfall, at the ferry, at the current, in the ocean and in the mountains, everywhere, and that the present only exists for it, not the shadow of the past, nor the shadow of the future. And so we kind of think that's saying that, well, first of all, it's saying that the river is everywhere. So basically, you get the experiencer everywhere with you. And then the river only experiences or it has present exists for it. So it doesn't matter about the past or the future. Well, just right then and there.
It's like you're stuck in the present. You can't really relive your past or your future. You're just like in this current, this constant place where you're just experiencing everything
At once.
right at once. Like
Because you can't go back, you can't go up the river, but the river's still part of you.
right.
Like the current's like going down, and as you keep going up current, you won't even go like forward. You keep going.
And that's the thing with the how it said earlier about these experiences. He said, what he said, it's the same but it's new.
It's always the same, but
Yeah, the thing with the river is it's always the same every time, but it's new at the same time. So like with life or whatever, it's the same things that go on because you've experienced it in the past, but it's new because it's in the present. It's a whole new thing, even though you've experienced something similar in the past.
So it's connected to the past, but it's not the past, so therefore it's connected
To the present.
it's the present. But which we can't say it's going to be connected to the future.
Yeah.
So we can only live our lives for right now, like this second.
That's what they're saying with that shadow in the past or not in the future. Like, there's no shadow. You can't go back in the past. You can't go to the future, so you're just living in the present, right then and there.
Do you guys agree with that? That you can only live your life
Control. Or you can control what you do now.
what you're doing is only in the present. So if we take that, a lot of times people make choices based on the future, right? I want to do this, so I can do this. I want to do this, so I can do that. But you guys saying, according to Siddhartha, like you can't even think about the future. You can only make decisions for you right then, and not based on what happened to you in the past. Like you have to make a decision
Right there.
for you for like what you want to do right then.
Maybe it's not for everything, but if it's something like how Siddhartha is doing for his finding himself, because if you're looking for the future if you're planning for the future for like what job you're gonna get or whatever, I guess that's something that you can. But if it's something that's undetermined, like I mean, what job you're gonna have is undetermined too, because anything could happen. But it's something it's more determinable than who you are, because you can't really. It's hard to know who you really are. So like, you can't look towards the. I don't know. It's hard to explain.
You're saying you can only know who you are right now.
You don't know how you're gonna be in the future. Like, you don't know if you're gonna change your personality or like your style, your clothes, your thoughts, like what you believe in. You don't know but the choices that you make at the present, like, at that moment, could change your future. But you just don't know it, I guess.
So it's like the river, like you guys were saying when I first got here. So basically, our lives resemble this river.
You keep going forward and you can't go back.
And the river changes, but we only know how it's going to be at that point, wherever you're at in the river. You
can't see that far. You can't see like over the water, just like going down, like eye level. You just can't see that far. Or you can think you can see far, but you can't. Like you think you can plan, like you don't know if there's a waterfall coming up. that you're just gonna go over and die.
Do you guys think that people live their lives this way? Is it reckless if you live your life this way?
In this
Yeah.
society,
Yeah, what would make it reckless?
So like, if you just like skip school now and just did what you wanted to do instead, you'd be screwed for the future.